All right, so before we begin, I'd like to go ahead and thank all our presenters and all the attendees for attending this webinar today. We are very excited and we hope that you can use this information as soon as possible. My name is Hung Yung. I'm with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I'm a transportation air quality planner, and we are the metropolitan planning organization for the North Central Texas area. Next slide, please. Today, I'm excited to be facilitating and moderating our first webinar in our SMARTE Saving Money and Reducing Truck Emissions program webinar series. We'll have 3 presentations today and a question and answer portion at the end. Please put all questions in the chat and we will try to address them either during the presentations in the chat or during the question and answer portion. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea of what the SMART program is, it stands for the Saving Money and Reducing Truck Emissions Program. It's an initiative to connect the trucking industry with emissions reducing and cost saving technology and strategies to help drivers, owner operators, and fleet managers reach their sustainability goals in a cost-effective manner. We work to build relationships, we share information and resources, and try to promote the use of smart way verified technology. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, or first presenter for today, Morgan Tavale. I was practicing this. Tavale, right?
Tavale. Okay.
Tavale.
Yes.
I practiced it so hard, but Morgan Tavale is on the freight team at the North Central Texas Council of Governments and has been with the COG for 3 years. She'll be presenting information about truck routes and share work that was done at the city of Lancaster in Texas. There you go.
Thank you so much, Hung. And thank you so much for having me. Like Hung said, my name is Morgan Tavale, and I do work on the freight team at the Council of Governments under Mike Johnson and Jeff Hathcock. I'm very excited to present about truck routes, what we as a freight team have done most recently with truck routes, and what we do every year regarding truck routes. Next slide, Jason, whenever you're ready. Thank you so much. Okay, so our federal, state, and local truck routes, it's divided into 3 ways, or 3 parts. We have the National Highway Freight Network, or system, and this includes over 265,000 miles of highways that help support interstate commerce by providing national truck routing. So this gets a trucker from one end to the country to the other end. Our state truck routes are put in place by the State Freight Highway Network, and this network includes state-funded roads or facilities. Okay, TxDOT is our provider here for the state of Texas. Next slide, please. For our local or municipality truck routes, each city and town designates specific roads in their cities as truck routes. Okay, there's a lot of importance to this because it allows for truck movement to pass from city to city. It moves trucks more efficiently and effectively, and it also helps provide safe movements for trucks and the other folks on the road. And it helps keep trucks out of specific areas like residential areas. Okay, these truck routes can be found in city ordinances, and municipalities update and change their specific truck routes quite often through the ordinance process. Next slide. So what does NCTCOG do regarding truck routes? More specifically, what does the freight team do? Well, each year, this is an annual project. Staff tracks truck routes changes throughout the region. We have a 12-county region that we serve. And in that region, or in those counties, each city and municipality goes ahead and updates, meaning they add truck routes, they delete truck routes, they make specific wording changes. And so what we do is we take a look at each city and we update all those changes in an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, then once we update the Excel spreadsheet, we go ahead and put it into a GIS shape file. And this data set is used each year for this analysis, but also other studies that we do. I just did a CUFC study, and I used that data set as well. And once that is done, once all that is put into the GIS shapefile, we then track it in a report. We go ahead and list out, what was updated, what was added, deleted, what have you, and any discrepancies that we see, especially in the GIS shapefile, any discrepancies we see. And then we plan as a team to do a study on truck routes to improve connectivity and safety within the region, which I will discuss here in a couple seconds. Next slide. This is a map that we have currently. This is our regional truck routes that we have just updated. We're in the process of updating it right now, but this is what we have so far. You can see that the green lines are our truck routes, commercial routes are our yellow lines, and then the state freight highway network routes are the red lines, and then the bluish lines are the national highway freight network truck routes on this map. And this is for our 12 county region. Next slide. And so one of the main reasons why I was so excited that Hung asked me to present was because we just finished this Lancaster truck route analysis. Okay, so just a little backstory or background information. Lancaster is a huge freight hub. There's a lot of freight activity happening and passing through the town or the city of Lancaster. And so the city of Lancaster asked us to help evaluate their city's truck route network. On the right side of the screen, you'll see their current truck routes. We have Beltline Road, Daniel Dale Road, Lancaster Hutchins, Pleasant Run Road. These are high truck route or high truck volume roads. And so what we did as a freight team, of course, we said, absolutely, we'll help you out with this. But what we did is we went out to go on a couple site visits. We took a look to see where these truckers are going, where is a lot of this, new freight activity happening, because they've got a huge, large freight facilities that are being built. And we wanted to check out the roads. We wanted to check out the conditions of the roads. Can it support this amount of freight movement? And so we took that into account regarding these truck routes. And so what we did is we created a whole analysis document for them. We included potential findings, recommendations, what have you. And Jason, if you'll go to the next slide, I'll show an example of kind of what we did for Daniel Dale Road. This is just an example on the right side of the screen on one of the truck routes that we took a look at. And so the orange line you'll see is actually Daniel Dale Road, but the blue line is the potential route that we suggest, which is Houston School Road. This is one that we suggested should be included in their truck route network. And so we did that for each one of their truck routes. And we had held a couple meetings with the city. We discussed why we chose what we chose, and our findings and recommendations, etc. And this analysis was really exciting for us because we plan to use this particular analysis as a path forward for a region-wide truck route analysis, which I'll discuss here in this next slide. So as a team, we just finished the 2022 update for our freight plan. And as part of this freight plan, we want to go ahead and do this truck route analysis that I've been talking about. And this analysis will identify issues within the region's truck route network to better create first and last mile connections from city to city and improve access to the region's FODs or freight oriented developments, which, Lancaster is one of them. And so this analysis will include findings and recommendations that address a whole host of things, one being connectivity issues within cities, connectivity issues from city to city. Thirdly, truck route description issues within city ordinances and truck route issues. Okay, we want to take a look at the roads. We want to go into the cities. We want to see, can these roads hold up the amount of freight that's moving within their cities or towns. We also want to take a look at their geometry. Is the road slanted? Is there a big ditch in the road? What have you. And then our main focus is definitely going to hone in on recommending potential truck routes within the region. And we want this to be a collaborative effort. We don't want just NCTCOG to take a hold of this. We want all the cities to go ahead and have the ability to work together so we can help make goods move more efficiently and effectively within the region, and also make it a lot more safer for our community and the truckers that are passing through. And that is it. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to take it at the end, or I'll answer it in the chat function. But if you have anything that you want to talk about after the presentation, here's my phone number, my email. There's also Jeff, our program manager for the freight team, and Mike Johnson, our principal planner as well. And we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And Hung, whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. That was a great
Absolutely.
presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And so now we'll go ahead and I'll introduce the second speaker for today. So with over 40 years of experience in location intelligence, Francisca has worked in a private industry, startups, and government organizations. He was formerly the editor-in-chief of Directions magazine and founded the Location Intelligence Conference in 2004 that he chaired for 10 years. In addition, he has published widely in technology publications, LinkedIn, and currently hosts the One Point with Quorum podcast, where he interviews thoughts leaders in geospatial tech. You're amazing. In general, you're amazing. Okay, so here you go, Joe.
Thank you, Hung. Appreciate that. And thanks everybody for joining. If you want to just go to the next slide, that'd be great. So I wanted to start off basically with a map here showing work from home, because I do think it impacts a lot of things that we're doing in trucking from first mile to last mile. This is the work from home statistics from 1990. And as you can see, not many people work from home during that period of time. And if you just advance that, you can see that things have changed quite a bit post-pandemic. So no surprise here, what has happened here based on the American Community Survey last year, we're now estimating that about 7.3% of the labor force now works from home, and that compares with about 4.3% in about 2010. So as e-commerce has not slowed down, as many of the situations regarding traffic, both transit operations, truck operations, vehicular traffic, they're moving towards the suburbs and exurbs areas, you can see here by the more bluish, the purple areas where there's more of a concentration of people working from home there. And that's, again, just an example from the Northeast. Okay, with that, let's go to the next slide. So we at CREM are a solution provider. So we work with developing both software solutions as well as data solutions, and we put that together in what we call as a data as a service. We work specifically with HERE Technologies. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're one of the two major street network providers in the world, actually. And in particular, what you're seeing here is the attribution that we have for road networks specifically for trucks. So as part of the attribution, we have warnings, which could be road condition warnings, accidents, weather conditions, physical restrictions, obviously bridge height are a big part of that, and road weight limitations. Truck POIs, points of interest, might be fuel depots, fuel stations where there's low emission fuel available. Distance markers, not really exciting, kind of standard. Loading dock location. The loading dock may be all the geometry, the individual lat longs for where you can dock and unload, where there are truck entrances, etc. So quite a bit of information there specific to trucks. Legal restrictions could be things about where certain legal limitations are applied or where the trucks are just plainly forbidden. And then there are environmental and hazardous material restrictions as well. So this makes up one very complete data set that is known as the truck data set. And for more information, there's a URL there down at the bottom where crem.com/product/here-trucks. And that has more information on that. Next slide. So as we know, we look at several different areas with respect to the supply chain, which is always in the news these days, from long haul, mid-mile, last mile. These are things that really impact trucking operations. So with the reduced labor force and supply chain bottlenecks, you really do need a very accurate and up-to-date data set You need very, very specific ETAs if you're doing last mile routing in particular, if you're dropping off at a home or whether you're dropping off at a depot. The demand in e-commerce is such that people want to get their packages on time. So you really need to rely on a very high resolution, highly accurate, very timely, very up-to-date set of data. If you go to the next slide. So to that end, I want to drill down a little bit on what we as a company who are resellers of data and on the long haul trucking side. So if you start with the long haul side, some of the use cases are dynamic route optimization, which means you want to change a truck delivery points en route if something happens or if they need to make an additional pickup. But a lot of the customers we work with are more interested in compliance and safety. We had one specific customer that has developed an app that is an in-cab app for driver safety. It's a company by the name of eDriving. They wanted much more up-to-date data than what they were getting from their current supplier, and I won't name who they are. We obviously use HERE data, but their issue was they needed to be in compliance. They were getting complaints from their truck drivers. They needed something that gave them more accurate routes so that their safety and maintenance could be in compliance. So we introduced products such as vehicle regulations, toll costs, enhanced truck attributes, which I more or less just went over, traffic patterns, and we can discern these traffic patterns where we can actually remove cars and discern the difference between cars and trucks. And then there's things like route matching. So if you're more concerned with compliance and safety and you're taking GPS coordinates, you want to make sure that those match with the high resolution digital street network. And the overall goal here, as it says here, is identifying road impedances and restrictions and making sure that drivers are safe. Let's go to the next slide. But there is a problem with traffic data, high definition route data. These come in extremely large volumes. And to be able to cookie cut out some data, like if you just want a city or if you want a municipality versus getting this as a state or a county, this is where it gets problematic and to be handled by typical traditional GIS systems. Many of our customers are moving towards a cloud environment, in particular cloud processing environment, where many of these cloud providers like Databricks and Snowflake have geoprocessing embedded into those platforms. So you don't have to do this on your desktop GIS system. Some of this is moved into the cloud, processed, and then in some respects you can do analysis in the cloud as well. So as many of you are aware, I'm sure this data can be very heavy, very voluminous, and as we collect more data from sensors on road networks, it's just going to get more voluminous. Now let's go to the next slide. So some things that truck data, traffic volume data is good for, some of it which is not very good for. Some of it is comparing cars from street A versus street B, time of day, day of week, which I'm going to show you in a little bit here, observing traffic volumes for streets, understanding consumer travel, again, versus truck travel, differentiating the two between truck volume and car volume, and then route optimization. It's not very good for conducting macro analysis where you're looking at a larger area, country or county or state. Particularly, you want to dive down into the road network specifically. Some people want to work with live traffic counts. There is a lag if you're looking for more near real time. It's about 48-hour, but live traffic counts can be collected and added as a level of attribution. Next slide. So here's what the title of this presentation was all about KPIs and measuring what you can do on an individual road network. So here's an example. Again, it's kind of a little bit fudged. The data is real, but we changed the name to protect the innocent here, of a couple of convenience stores along Route 35. We changed the name there, but if you really want to know, that's I-35 down through Central Texas. So a lot of this has to do with helping our customers are in the retail industry. In this case, we're looking at traffic volume, and we can associate traffic volume with things like retail sales, which is what they were after. But I wanted to show this to you to show you how we collect data on a per day basis, traffic volume. Again, not very surprising, but for us in dealing with commercial clients, it's very useful. Let's go to the next slide. So this slices it down a little bit. Just go ahead and advance if you would, Jason. Yeah, so this goes down into slicing by time. So we're doing our hourly time slices by day of week. And again, it helps us understand better about some of the more granular data that's able to be extracted from the road network. And you can see where high traffic is there in red, and lower traffic obviously during the early morning hours. Here in this case, we're looking at high traffic volumes on Sunday and on Saturday afternoon, probably making a stop to fuel up and whatnot. So these are some of the different types of data we work with. We try to provide these kinds of dashboards and KPIs to trucking companies, especially tech trucking companies that want to really time slice data, want to get into more of the details, determine where things are more safe, cut down on carbon emissions. And by looking at this data, you can plan travel a little better, where there's, off-peak hours as an example. Next slide. So, we think that in the not too distant future, really in the not too distant future, we'll be looking at supply chains where there's autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles that are going to be populating the road network. And you can more or less count on the fact that this is going to rely on some very high definition street network attribution that takes into account all of the things that hopefully I've just shown you. So hopefully that's given you a good overview. I don't think you have any slide. If you might have advanced the next slide, Jason. Yeah. So yeah, I want to thank you for your time. If you got any questions, you can reach out to me. Maybe we can support your organization in a way to get you some of this attribution that allows you to do some more geospatial analysis and derive some very nice location intelligence. So Hump, thanks very much. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Joe. That was a great presentation and lots of great information there too. Hopefully you guys were able to, attendees are able to use that information for your company. So our next and final presenter is going to be Thomas Bamonte. Tom is a senior program manager for the technology and innovation at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. He's practiced law for 30 years before switching to transportation planning and technology at the NCTCOG for about 6 years ago. So welcome, Tom. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Hung, and thanks for this opportunity to present on a project that kicked off in June, and I'm very excited about a project to optimize the flow of freight vehicles to and from the interstates, a project that will have definite routing implications for freight vehicles. Next slide. So we were inspired by this project. Our freight team certainly has identified plenty of truck blockages and challenges moving throughout this region. We've partnered with TxDOT on a Connected Freight Corridors project. That's a project to optimize operations on the expressway. And in that project, the industry partners said, well, we like what you're doing on the expressways, but can you help us out on getting our freight vehicles through signalized intersections more effectively? So we developed this project as a way to support our TxDOT partner working on the interstates. We have substantial expertise in the region with connected vehicle infrastructure, most notably the city of Arlington and its connected vehicle corridor on Cooper Street. And we were frankly spurred to action by similar MPOs and DOTs in other states that are starting to look at ways to use technology to improve the flow of vehicles through signalized intersections. Next slide. So our vision was this: we were looking for the technology that not just worked, but minimize the burden on both the public sector and the private sector. Rather than delegating the work to our local partners, we opted to pick an integrator, ultimately Kimley Horn, to do the implementation work, again, as a way to reduce the burden on our local partners. We recognize that coordination is very important and that signals belong to our local partners. So we are working with them to make sure that they know that they retain control of their signal network when they partner on this project. What we're doing is optimizing, helping them optimize the efficiency of their system. We will be using performance measures and dashboards to and adapting the system throughout the multi-year project. And finally, we have a focus on ROI. So we know that time is money for the freight sector. The savings that we will generate through this project can be quantified. And as I'll mention later, we incentivized our integrator to at least match the investment we're making in this project. Next slide. So after a procurement process, we had 9 very strong proposals, which is great response from the industry. We picked a solution that requires no new equipment, either in the vehicles or on the roadway system. Again, that was part of our effort to minimize the burden on our private and public partners. The project is not a pilot. It's not a proof of concept. It is scaling up to 500 signalized intersections, and it will support up to 5,000 vehicles simultaneously. So the pool of vehicles can be much more than 5,000, but the system can handle 5,000 at any one time. And we will roll it out in up to 10 jurisdictions. We've already got a number of agencies that have been knocking on our door looking for the opportunity to participate. And we are, as I'll go into a little detail, we've designed the system so that all freight sectors, large and small, can participate. Next slide. What we've done as the, and I think the first in the country to do this, we've combined 2 solution types. The first is called Green Light Optimized Signal Advisory, and that is using technology to give drivers speed advisories so they can hit the green light. So our goal is to push this information out to our freight partners, and their drivers can adjust their speeds to hit the green light on the existing signal timing plan. But if that doesn't work, then we are prepared to intervene and adjust the signal timing plan, maybe adding a few seconds of green or reducing red on the cross streets by a few seconds to, again, try to increase the percentage of green lights that our participating freight vehicles hit. Next slide. The architecture, it looks complicated, but it's really got 3 parts. We've got the signals. So we are talking to the signals and harvesting information from the signals about their signal phase and timing. We have trucks that will communicate their location information using apps or existing onboard AVL equipment. And then we've got the brains in the back office that will put truck movements, signal timing together to issue the speed advisories and, if necessary, adjust the signal timing to, again, get more trucks through green lights more efficiently. Second, next slide, please. So focusing on the trucks, again, because we want large and small truck fleets to be able to participate, they can use a app, smartphone app. It's called the TTS app to get green light signal advisories. And then they can also use an app those at the bottom, to get the transmit their location and get the signal timing adjustment. So we see that as something that will appeal to maybe the smaller fleets that don't have a lot of onboard AVL equipment. But then the more sophisticated fleets that have AVL devices, we're working with those manufacturers so that they communicate vehicle location information. We use the displays to communicate the green light signal advisory, the speed advisories, and we basically will piggyback off of existing in-vehicle equipment so the major fleet trucks can participate in that manner. So again, to advance sort of equity across the industry sector, we're trying to have a solution that every trucker can use. Next slide. So what are the implications? One is routing. So as this system goes into place and gets known, because we'll certainly publicize it, we will be able to offer more efficient routes from freight hubs to expressways. And the time savings, obviously will depend on the length of the corridor, the number of signalized intersections, but we know that, again, time is money, and even relatively small improvements in travel times over a course of months and years can add up to significant dollar savings. The research suggests that there are major energy savings, fuel savings of up to 20% when trucks are able to move smoothly through intersections rather than the stop and start. And what that means is that not only does it make ICE trucks more efficient, but reducing the energy requirements of travel on signalized corridors means that it's more attractive to switch to an EV because you're essentially increasing the effective range of an EV because of more efficient use of energy. There's emissions reduction, and there's also indications that this kind of improvement of truck flow through signalized intersections improves traffic flow for all vehicles. Freight vehicles take up a lot of space. They're often slow to get accelerated. And by moving them through signalized intersections more effectively, we help everyone. There's potential to scale this to other vehicle types, and perhaps if it proves out to a higher number of intersections in this region. And we have a lot of folks throughout the state and beyond who are watching this project very carefully to see its feasibility for scaling up nationally. So our goal is to, again, optimize the movement of freight vehicles along those freight heavy truck routes and scale to other use cases as it makes sense. Next slide. So we've launched it. Kickoff was in June. Right now, we're in the process of identifying the most promising intersections, doing outreach with our local partners. We'll be doing some outreach with the freight industry. I expect in a matter of months to have our initial partners announced. Next year, we will roll out the technology solution. And again, I mentioned before, we're focused on ROI. We have structured this contract, and it's kind of unique for public agency contract, where we have an incentive payment for the integrator if and only if they deliver travel time savings to the freight industry at least equal to the amount of our investment in the project. So we've got, our integrator has some skin in the game, and we think that will help us focus on successful delivery. Next, and I believe final slide, go ahead. So I'm excited to talk to you today and welcome input from the freight industry. We are already talking to some major fleets. If you represent a fleet, please come talk to us about the opportunities for your fleet to participate in the project. Again, we've done our best to give multiple opportunities for folks to participate depending on the technology that they have or don't have in their vehicles today. You can help us identify the corridors and intersections that are giving your fleets problems, where your trucks are idling for long periods, waiting for the green light. The industry input will help us when we identify the intersections and the jurisdictions where we want to roll out this solution. You talk, I'm sure, fleet owners and operators, talk to your local public officials, the economic development people, the transportation people. Mention that COG is doing this project and encourage them to come talk to us about participating. And finally, those of you who do opt to join the program, we welcome you on our project advisory committee, which will include everyone who is participating. Next slide. So this is how you can contact me. I have an open door policy, email, call, or hit me up on Twitter. Love to hear your insights and your ideas. And we'd like to work with all and have hopefully a US leading project success here. So thank you. Turn it back to you, Hung.
Thank you, Tom. That was great. So now we have entered our next portion of our webinar, which is the questions and answers. And so I know there's been some chats in the chat. And so if you guys have any questions for any of our presenters, please go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you for you to unmute, and then you can ask your question. So I know as of right now, we've got well, I'll start with the first comment in the chat, which was from Dan Murray about the working from home data shows a reversal from 2020 to 2021 and second quarter of 2022. Internet sales relative to 2020 and 2021 are almost down. They're also down. AASHTO car VMT is way up compared to 2020 and 2021, corroborating there's a slow reversal trend. Only point is that the long-term planning should not assume that most employees will work from home. And so Joe and Dan have been conversing in the chat. And then I think the last comment that Dan had was for Tom, for the freight buy-in, K through H needs to produce direct ROIs for carriers and or drivers. Societal benefits don't motivate industry investments, particularly when shareholders are involved. So I don't know if anybody would like to respond or have any additional comments. Feel free to just raise your hand and I'll just call on you and have you unmute.
Well, I'll respond to Dan's last comment, which is a good one. And Dan, I want to assure you, we are laser focused on the direct ROI, and the incentive payment to the integrator Kimley Horn is tied to direct ROI. But we have put together this project using a cross-disciplinary team, including our freight group, our air quality group, and we have external stakeholders who are interested in some of the broader benefits and also possible costs associated with optimizing the flow of freight vehicles. So as a planning organization, we're going to take the broad perspective, but where the rubber meets the road in terms of the contract and the feedback to the freight industry, we're absolutely going to focus on those travel time benefits. Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Tom. I'll go ahead and allow for a few more minutes to formulate questions or raise your hand or anything like that. But after following the question and answer portion, we'll just have some local updates about some funding opportunities, and then we'll close. And you guys are also welcome to, after the webinar, y'all can definitely email us with any other questions or any comments or anything like that about the webinar. And for
And
those,
if I could just break in with something, Joe referenced automated vehicles, and this may be of interest. It relates to the routing issue. I want to flag another project we're working on, which is to improve our identification and reporting of work zone information. We've heard a lot from the AV trucking industry, which has become well established in Dallas, that accurate reporting of work zones will help AV operations, and that information obviously will help human-driven vehicles as well. So we have a project, we're in the middle of a procurement process to have expert services help our local partners turn their work zone information into the standardized US DOT work zone data exchange specification. And we're also doing an assessment of apps that use vehicle video to improve the situational awareness about our roadways. And one of those use cases is identification of work zone and road blockages. So the effort that I highlighted today is part of a portfolio of projects to improve the flow and safety of freight vehicles throughout the region and the state.
thank you, Tom. Yeah, that's really important. I know I've had some trucking companies that are wanting us to focus on more updated working zones, things like that, so that routes can be diverted so that they can avoid those areas. Dan had said in the chat, work zone notifications are good for all motor carriers, particularly with the massive new infrastructure spending that is soon underway. So yes. Dan also mentioned that almost 1 in 4 work zone fatalities now involve large trucks, which is very unfortunate. Yeah.
And work zone incidents increased by 33% last year in Texas. So it is a real crisis point in terms of roadway safety.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure if there's any questions that are coming in that you're welcome to raise your hand and speak, or put it in the chat. I'll give it maybe a few more minutes and then we can go on to the next portion. Okay. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, Jason. So the North Central Texas Council of Governments, we have 2 funding opportunities open right now. The North Texas Freight Terminal Electrification, and that funds electrified parking spaces at terminals, warehouses that service TRUs, electric TRUs. So like while they're on standby or something like that, they can plug in instead of running their diesel TRU, or if they have an ETRU, they can avoid having to run diesel. That funding is available. The next deadline is October 14th. It's kind of a rolling deadline until all funds have been awarded. Currently, there's about $860,000 available in rebates. And then the next funding opportunity is the North Texas Clean Diesel Project. That is due to, the next deadline is October 14th as well. And there's approximately $86,000 available in that funding pot. And that is for replacement vehicles, replacement engines, locomotive idling reduction, and then also TRU trailer replacements. And so those are The 2 funding opportunities that are still open and available, if you have any questions about them or want more information, please email us at SMARTE, SMARTE, at NCTCOG.org, and we can provide you with more information about those funding opportunities. And let me see. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And so thank you again to all our presenters and all our attendees for making time to attend and be here with us. This is our first of a series of our SMART webinar series that we'll be hosting, and we hope to see you at our next webinar, which will cover Smart Way verified technology, and it'll be on October 5th. So we hope to see you there. And again, this is our contact information. My name is Hung Yung, and then Jason Brown is the principal air quality planner. And you can call us, leave us a message, or email us. So I hope you have enjoyed the webinar. And if there's no other questions, I can go ahead and end. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.